Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you clear.
Okay, good. What I'm going to do is make sure that I don't get an echo here. Give me just a second. Got it. Okay, so I'm going to keep us here on Zoom. And we are live. I want to welcome all of our viewers that are here and that are joining us. I'm so excited to be able to be here with Jasmine and to discuss some different things about other types of therapy aside from the reason why I'm calling this series Beyond the Couch is because I think what people typically think about when they think about therapy is lying down on a couch, telling your therapist what it is that's going on with you, et cetera, et cetera. There are so many other ways to provide a therapeutic process for people aside from just talk therapy or other types of things that you typically think about with a psychiatrist or with a psychologist. So we're going to touch on that. So within this series, we'll talk about different areas, holistic ways, et cetera, where you can have therapy and not necessarily within that traditional sense. So I have here with me Jasmine Reed, who is the founder of MOHO Dance, founder and owner of MOHO Dance. Now, when she described it to me, it was described as a mental rejuvenation experience. And so can you tell me a little bit more about what that means?
Yes, so MOHO Dance is a mental rejuvenation experience. We are a mental wellness company teaching mental wellness through movement in the creative arts. So when you come to us, we're not only teaching you about your mental wellness, but doing so in a way that involves the arts and different types of creative arts. So this might include dance, music, painting, karate. We do physical arts, arts and crafts. And so each workshop definitely looks different, and we try to tailor it and cater it towards the audience that, you know, we're going into or who we're going to see. But that's basically the gist of it, is a mental rejuvenation experience.
Okay. And so that people are aware and they're educated on this, because I've just recently, even though I'm in the field, recently been exposed to creative arts therapy. And so I'm always fascinated with the different areas, just like you were talking about, that people can be exposed to. What's the difference, however, in creative arts therapy as a term, as opposed to what it is that you do within MOHO?
Yes, so creative arts therapy engages the participant in a form of art to address emotional and behavioral disorders. And so MOHO Dance, we do the same exact thing, but what makes us different is that creative arts therapy is usually done by a licensed psychiatrist, a licensed professional. I'm a mental wellness enthusiast. I've had experience with it in my community, with my own family, with my friends, and with myself as well. And so I've created MOHO Dance for my community, for myself. But until I'm able to actually go back to school, which I'm planning on doing, and going back to my alma mater, NYU, to get my master's in mental health. But until I do so, that's what actually makes the difference between MOHO Dance and actually a creative therapeutic experience. So we're actually just connecting people to the resources. So you come into MOHO, you get the information, and then from then on, if you would like to speak to a professional, we have those resources for you. A lot of our workshops actually include licensed life coach and therapists. So this upcoming workshop we will have a licensed life coach there. We had them come out last workshop we had, and we just like to include them in our space. And they always look like us as well, and they always have gone through the same experiences that we've gone through, because what makes us different as a company is that we're really focused on providing culturally relevant and accessible resources through creative arts therapy. And that's what brought me to create MOHO. Is just from my own experience, in Harlem, growing up as a young African-American female. The arts is super big in my community. So I just wanted to find a way to connect that and mental health and mental wellness. And that's what MOHO Dance is about.
Okay, and I'm glad that so we'll backtrack for a second, right? Because I
Yeah.
didn't actually allow you to kind of introduce yourself and your background. So what is it that you bring professionally and I guess personally that contributes to your mission here?
So I was introduced to creative arts therapy at a very young age, subconsciously without even knowing. My mother, going through her own traumatic childhood, used to attend her own creative therapy sessions, and I joined along with her. She actually took me with her, and I didn't know at that time that's what I was going to. But as I got older, we ended up speaking about it because I remember just her space being a space where I could always interact. I would go there and I would never feel, like it was a therapy session. It would be toys there, stuff for me to do. And it was just this place that I would love going to. And on the other hand, as my mom and I actually talked about it, this form of therapy was actually the most, I guess, it was the most helpful form of therapy for my mom. She still to this day talks to the person who was her therapist. Unfortunately, she passed away 2 years ago, but my mom is still in contact with her family. They watched me growing up. And when I actually started MOHO Dance, I was able to talk to her about what I was doing and how she influenced me to create this company. So that was my first introduction to creative arts therapy. But like I said, it was in the back of my head until I actually attended NYU, Stern School of Business, and I took a positive psychology class. And positive psychology is illuminating the positive in us to address our psychological issues rather than what we see a lot in our community, which is the negative. And we see a lot in our households, negative reinforcements rather than positive reinforcement. And so when I took this positive psychology class, it kind of clicked in my head, why haven't I heard about this before? And, why is this not kind of taught in the communities that, that we are in? At the same time, my little sister was going to her own mental health issue, her own mental journey, as I should say. She had got accepted into a boarding school as I had in the prior years, but she went to a different boarding school. But that boarding school did not have the right resources for her. She was the only person of color from an underprivileged community coming into a space of white peers, and they were not acceptive of her or supportive of her. And she ended up regressing a lot, and we ended up having to pick her up from the school and take her to we actually picked her up from a mental hospital and from a mental program. So there's a lot that went on with that, and I'll let her, share her own story. But that, and just having to bring her home from that situation, and now we're back in Harlem and we're looking for support groups. We're looking for, resources and channels about what my sister's going through, and we're just getting put off as, oh, she's just, she's just what all kids are like that. All kids are, all kids act up, all kids run away from home, all kids stop going to school. And I'm like, my sister is not like that. She actually changed. She's a straight A student. My sister, that's not normal for her. And so just to have her mental journey kind of put off and kind of not really saying that, your mental journey doesn't matter. There was nothing there for us to actually navigate the space. And so me going to business school and just trying to figure out what I was actually going to do with my life. I'm this young woman coming up. I love my community. I love Harlem. I want to make a difference. At the same time, I have this amazing business degree. And then when my family and my own person, I actually went through a mental health situation, it kind of all clicked, and I'm very spiritual. I grew up in a spiritual house. So I grew up Christian, and I'm very in tune with, my spirituality. And I just think that it was something that was kind of just all meant to be in a way. And so with those three factors coming into my life, that's kind of how MOHO Dance came to be, because I wanted to create a space and a channel for people who go through those experiences, like myself, like my sister, like others in Harlem and underprivileged communities, to come to a space and not say, hey, you need to sit down on the couch and let's talk about it, or feel like you're talking to somebody who hasn't gone through those same experiences as you. And so we use the arts to do that, to just open up the space to talk about mental health and mental wellness where it's not talked about, where it's shunned.
Absolutely. And that's such a powerful story, right? To be able to relate that to something I've mentioned before, that a lot of times what it is that we experience in our own lives, we're able to utilize just as you have, and even channeling through your sister, what it is that she had experienced to be able to establish something as great as MOHO, and for other people, you know, and to be able to see that and to recognize that. So that's really powerful. I wanted to touch a little more on what it was that you were speaking on as far as the importance of representation and how that made such a big difference in your experience in your boarding school as opposed to your sister's experience.
Yes. So fortunately for me, when I went to boarding school, I had a great support group in terms of not only did the school provide a space for their students of color to come and actually speak and just be comfortable, but unfortunately, my class had the most Black kids in like the history of the school. So I had a totally different experience. I still talk to my friends this day when we go like, so, you know, I just feel like I had just more of a support group. And that's where representation comes in, because even though I'm not saying she had to have so and so amount of Black kids in her class, or it has to be like, I'm saying that her school didn't allow the space to say, we are taking these kids from, you know, their place, what they've known all their lives, and putting them in a different space. And then they're going through a lot of life changes. Me coming from Harlem, I had to, you're realizing there's a lot of differences in terms of education, in terms of how people actually live, in terms of what money actually is, and the levels of money that there is. And we go to these boarding schools. I went when I was 13. My sister went when she was 14. So you're going at a time where psychologically you are the most vulnerable. You know, you're at these places from 13 to 18. I feel like boarding schools definitely need to take into accountability their children and their Black children that are coming from these underprivileged communities, and so that they don't get lost in themselves. You see a lot of Black kids from boarding schools, I find, and this is my personal experience, but I've talked to, you know, a lot of my peers, and, you know, they can also speak upon their experience. But from my experience, when you go to a boarding school, you kind of go two ways. You either go into that boarding school and you, as a Black kid, you kind of get lost in it and you lose your culture, and you kind of assimilate into it, and you kind of just want to hide, and you know, you change, and now you're kind of different. And I'm not saying that's bad. I don't like when a person does that and forget where they came from, and totally, you know, now you're looking down upon other Black people that might have come from that same place that you have come from, because you're able to navigate these white spaces that others aren't able to do. And then you have people who kind of like me, who have the support group, who go into these spaces, realize at a young age, I am going into a space that's not built for me, but this will benefit, you know, me in the future. But how do I do that without losing myself? Yeah. While I'm going back home to Harlem, and people are saying, well, why are you talking so white? You know, like, right. And it's like, I'm going back to Harlem and I'm taking the SATs. And if you go to my boarding school, you're getting 1,600, and that's bad. That's the lowest you're getting. Then I'm going back to Harlem and my friends are like, I got a 12. This is back in the day when it was ran out of 3, not the 2. And they're like, oh, I got a 1,200. That's so great. And I was actually like afraid to speak out upon it, because I knew my friends would kind of feel like in a way I was being, I guess, you know, stuck up or whatever. But I really wanted to like let them know that there is a real level of disparity and a real gap in between what we're being taught and what we're being, you know, given, and what's actually out there. And so I think that for me, just because of how my personality, it was a little bit easier for me to assimilate into that school and that culture, because of just my personality and the support group that I had. My sister, not for nothing, I'm gonna be frank, she's a little bit rough around the edges. You know, you meet my sister, I'm the quiet one. My sister's you know, the rowdy, like, you know, the loud one. She makes friends super easy. She walks into a room, you grab her attention, you know, the attention gets grabbed, but she has that personality. So for her, I think that was just a really huge culture shock for her. And she didn't have the support she needed as a young Black woman coming from Harlem, going to a little small suburban area with just, you know, no support. Right. She had a huge personality crash. She got diagnosed with BPD, you know, bipolar personality disorder. And so it really took her on a loop, definitely.
Okay. And, you know, and it's just like you were saying, right? During that age, that's a very influential time anyway. So then to even say that people forget where they came from. They're still trying to figure out who they are. You're still trying to figure out who you are at that age, 12, 13, 14 years old. And so
Right.
to be put in a situation to where you're not seeing other people that look like you and that can nurture who you are, you know, and to develop that, it can make a big difference as what you've said and what we're seeing here.
Right.
So
And not to cut you off, but to see when we see that, you know, we kind of see lack of representation in mental health. And so just taking it from there, that's why I wanted to come back. And, you know, when she went through this whole situation, we can definitely come back and put her into these spaces where, you know, she can sit down on the couch and speak to somebody, but that wasn't working. And that's not going to work. And so now we need to see higher representation in mental health. And when I mean that, I mean people who have our experiences like us, who look like us. When we going into these sessions, we're doing stuff that relates to us. And creative arts therapy is nothing new. We've been doing creative arts therapy for forever, you know, and we talk about spirituality and just using the arts to heal. We've been doing that before it was a term put to it. And so I think when it comes to mental health research has not been explored enough in the Black community. A lot of the research that's done is done on for white people. So we just need to just open up that space to be able to have options for us as well.
great. And, you know, and that was actually a great segue because that's where I was going next anyway. So then as far as like with your professional work now and working with the councilwomen and working with, what is it that you feel like you see in the community where those gaps are that we could address as it relates to mental health? What are we seeing out there that people are talking about? How are people still in our community relating to mental health? You know, is that stigma still there?
The stigma is definitely still there. I think the first thing we have to do is have the conversation because like I said, creative arts therapy never goes away. We've been examining ourselves forever. We dance, we sing, we you know, when we get upset, a lot of us go, we write, we do things that make us feel good. We just don't speak about it. We don't talk about it because the negative stigma is that once it comes up into the air, once you speak about something that's wrong with you, then you're automatically deemed crazy or you're automatically deemed like you're incapable of continuing to live a life in society, which is not true. So I think that in Harlem, we are seeing, you know, we have organizations that bring up the arts and influence the arts. But we need to have more conversations about mental health and breaking that stigma of it's okay not to, and it's telling people that it's okay not to be okay, and that it's okay to talk about it. I think Harlem is we have a mask on. In Harlem, you always have a mask on. You know, you walk down the street, a lot of the youth are worried about what they're wearing, you know, the latest trends, all that stuff. When I was growing up, I even tell like my kids this now, you guys are worried about the wrong things. You guys are worried about what you wear, what you have, when literally that's not your money. You know, that's your parents' money. And we're all struggling. Like, let's talk about what's going home at home. You know, what are you using this to hide, like to cover up? Not saying that everyone's home life is, you know, is something going on there, but I think there definitely needs to be a conversation happening in our community about breaking the negative stigma around mental health and mental wellness in general, and to get it going.
Yeah. And so I know that you mentioned that you're like within your household. And so it was probably different, right? Because with your mom, it was very open. You talked a lot about arts and those different things and how it relates to how you're feeling. So you made that sort of like mind-body connection. How do you think that we could improve that within the households? Like when you're talking about communicating, not only do I feel like we don't talk amongst each other within the community enough, but we're not talking about it in the home. And I wondered, why is that? Why do you feel like we're not talking about it in our houses, how we feel, our emotions? Why is that something that we don't tend to do?
I think it's because we're so caught up in a way of how we are. Like, oh, just, you know, people are so caught up in how it's supposed to be done, how parenting is supposed to be done, and what's passed on from generations. Like I was saying, like negative reinforcement is kind of a normal thing in the Black household, and it's nothing bad. I was like, my family wasn't perfect as well. You know, my mom punished me. She hit me when necessary. I'm not saying that she abused me. She hit me when necessary. And I'm saying like, that wasn't horrible. Now I'm grown and I'm like, my mom, she was strict. I respect her, but what we need to talk about also is positive reinforcement and how to include that as well. Because when you have too much negative reinforcement, that's when the problems come in. When you want your children to just respect you without talking about what respect is, or just talking about the emotions that come with that. A child can respect you all they want, but how do they really feel about you?
Right.
Because that's what's gonna get brung up and when they become an adult. And so I think that we need to have more positive reinforcements brought into our homes by including the parents in mental health. We need to focus on our adults because a lot of our parents are stressed. Like you grow up and you realize your parent was doing the best that they can. And like sometimes they don't have all the answers. And I feel like, as a parent, like I said, we just do what's we do what we think is best or what's passed down from generations without really exploring what else is out there. And so I think first we need to get the parents into the conversation about, are you okay? What's going on with your mental health? What's going on with your mental wellness? And have you even heard about positive psychology and how this could actually help your family or, help them? And then once we have a conversation, letting them know that that's not going to lead to us saying that you're a bad parent or, or that's not going to lead to talking about emotions is not going to lead to somebody coming in and, now they're in your business or everybody knows my business. Because that's what, don't tell nobody my business. That's what a lot of people say. It's like, it's not about that. It's literally about making sure that your emotions and your well-being are intact because that's what we're missing. And that's what's getting lost in our community.
Right. And then to your point, a lot of different times when we're bringing up these conversations, there's this negative connotation that's attached to it. So you can't bring up something that has the word psychology or therapy or anything like that in it, because then that equals crazy or that equals mental health issues or mental illness or something like that. And so that's where we definitely need to sort of remove that stigma and that breakdown and really help people understand, no, this can just be regular conversation because people go through emotional situations every day, all the time, and the more that you just allow that to fester, the more then that comes out into your behavior, into your health, etc. So being able to have those different outlets, and it's like you mentioned, all of these different things, people don't think, oh, this is therapeutic, dancing, singing, journaling. People do that all the time. You write all the time. You sing all the time. We are a culture and a community of arts. And that's what we do a lot of within our community anyway. So it's not like we're thinking, oh, well, now we're in therapy. No, this is something that you do. So like when I'm trying to sort of get someone to not think about working out, then I give them something that they're used to doing and that they love anyway. That's why people like to do Zumba classes or they like to dance. But they're working out, they're getting their heart rate up. So the objective is still there, right? It's still there. It's just, oh, well, we're masking it this way, but you're still doing what it is that you need to do. And it's the same with this, applying these different methods. So thank you for that. So we just have a few minutes. What I wanted to do was to maybe just get some more information about MOHO. I know that you also have an event that's coming up in about 2 weeks. So if you could share that with us and then let the audience know where they could reach you.
Of course. So we have an event coming up. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so this is just a general workshop to get people involved in what mental health and wellness is. So if you are one of those people who are like, I have no idea where to start, I have, no idea where to go, this is the perfect place for you. And it's for the people who have come to our workshops and who just want a refresher and a rejuvenation. That's going to take place on May 26th at 5:30. And it's going to be at 181 West 135th Street, which is for our Harlem folks, the Old Y. It's across the street from the YMCA. It's the City Council Office of Operations at the moment. And the community center, there's signs there for the dojo. So you'll see it as soon as you walk up 135th. And so we're going to have life coach Mike Taylor there as well to speak to our participants. And we're just going to have a general mental wellness workshop to learn about what it is, why it's important, and resilience in our Black community. That's what our emphasis is going to be about. Like, what is resilience? Why are Black people so resilient? And is it actually good to be as what's the limit of resilience? Where does it go from being resilient to actually, for it to actually be a negative thing and actually hurting your mental health and mental wellness? Because I think in our community, we want to be so resilient, so strong all the time that we forget to take care of ourselves. It's a wear, and we wear and tear our bodies. So now you come to this workshop and you can just get some mental rejuvenation and come have some fun with us.
Yeah, and then to reiterate and to emphasize that we are a community, and that the stronger that we are individually, the stronger that we can be collectively.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much. And you told the audience how to reach you, right?
Yeah. So you can reach us if you Google MOHO Dance, MOHO Dance. You'll find our website. We have Instagram. We have Facebook. That's the best way to get in contact with us. On our website, there's a chat box. If you have any questions about mental wellness, or if you need to find resources, or you want to find a therapist or someone to speak to, inbox us, go into our chat box. We will definitely help you out. That's what we're here for. But that's the best way to find us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I'll make sure and list all of this information in the description as well on the recording for those who watch the replay.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Phoenix, for having me here.
Of course. Thanks, Jazz. And I appreciate you. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you.
You as well.